On this episode of The Visual Effect, we have motion capture performer, TV, film actor. He's appeared in the films Justice League, The Cocaine Bear, and yes, Kong Empire. He is an established martial artist.
Here's
You did better.
Allan Henry!
Can you tell we're a little bit excited? Allan Henry!
Hi.
I'll try not to do a New Zealand accent.
Oh, why not?
But it's very exciting.
I may. Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I may roam across the British Isles with my accent. Who knows what's going to happen? But yes, I'm Allan Henry. It's nice to be here.
So you've flown all the way to be live and in person at The Visual Effect. So the first episode of The Visual Effect, we were so excited that we actually scared our first guest. So we'll try not to do that. You, looking at your CV, you do a lot of fighting. So I might be very scared of you. What is this guy?
Yeah, he's a guest that is hard to make feel fear.
Yes.
Because I believe he instills fear
Yes.
in most of the folks he appears on screen with.
But he's just a giant teddy bear.
Well, there'll be a lot more revealed through this episode
Yes.
about what and who he is.
Okay.
But I cannot wait for him to tell his story to everyone here
And
through The Visual Effect.
I find that's always the hardest thing to do, right? Because it's always easier to praise someone else, and it's always easier to have someone else describe you. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Allan Henry, right? I want, in order of how much work you do in those areas, what are you, do you do, how do you pay the bills? Go.
Yeah, great. That's a great way to phrase that kind of question. So most of my time is spent being a performance capture artist for digital effects, for post-production, for movies, for TV, for video games. And then just under that is probably acting in terms of the work that I do. So on-screen acting, where you can see my face. And then under that is probably movement coach. I've been movement coach for a few gigs. And yeah, and then under that is like nerd who plays tabletop role-playing games and video games. And then just a goofball dad who, I like to go surfing with my son and take the dog for walks and dress up when it's Halloween or just any excuse really. Yeah, that's kind of how I would, I guess, order those things.
Okay. So extra hard question. I'm going to take away the dad because the dad one, because you have to love that because you're stuck in it. Which one occupies most of your heart? Which one do you love doing most?
Performance capture for sure.
Why?
Because what I've discovered in performance capture is that the range and the breadth of work that you are able to do is so much wider because the options come down to, can you physically define the character? Can you physically display the character's movements in the way that it exists? And that doesn't rely on a stereotypical image of what you look like or where you're from or how you sound sometimes. A lot of the time it's just, can you do the movement? Yes, then you get to be all of these things. Okay. And in my screen acting career, I've done a range of characters, but in my performance capture career, I've done an incredible range of humans all the way through to non-human, weird, fantastical kind of beings. So yeah, I love just how open it is, and the possibilities are really endless when you're limited by imagination, really.
So you were in a amazing film. You took two of my favorite words, cocaine and bear, and you played a grizzly bear.
Face.
Tell us how on earth? First of all, how on earth you got cast for that? Did you have to audition? And the process.
And how good was the cocaine?
We cannot say that.
So yeah, Cocaine Bear was definitely one of the weirdest shows that I've ever worked on. The process of getting the gig was very common to how a lot of New Zealand work happens, by word of mouth and reputation and recommendation from people. And Elizabeth Banks already knew that she was going to use the artists at Weta FX to create the bear anyway, and she just called them, called the motion capture department and said, do you know anyone who could do this on set for the actors? And they said, yeah, we recommend Allan Henry. It's the guy we're going to use anyway. And that led to a Zoom call with Elizabeth and some of the producers and the first AD. And she and I spoke about the process. She asked me about what my process would be. And she asked me, one artist to another artist, how I would approach the work. So I responded with how I would approach the work. And she enjoyed how much I cared about the emotional impact of this bear in terms of working with actors and how much the actors needed from a physical presence on set. And that's kind of where the job happened.
So how much did you prepare for the movements of the bear itself? So we as viewers could interpret that it's not a man doing the motion, it's actually the bear doing all this.
And what were you wearing? Is that a weird question? I mean, like, not
No.
like that, but like actually, technically, what
He
were you
was a
wearing?
bear that bared all. No.
It's dangerously close to that, actually, because I was wearing black lycra. So it was just...
Tell me more about this black
so
lycra.
black lycra. It was really slimming.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredibly comfortable. There was so much range of movement. And I was in black lycra. It differed from a lot of performance capture suits you'll see if you watch behind the scenes. Those are usually grey or patterned grey.
And they got the little thingies
And they've
on
got
them.
markers on them that
Okay.
reflect the light. But because of the process of how they were working with the digital double, which was the CGI bear, they put me in black lycra, and then I had arm extensions and a head rig with a snout on it so that I could get my body as close to the shape and position of a black bear so that they could look at the footage and then digital artists could almost superimpose the CGI bear on top of what I was doing and match my rhythm and match my timing and match the camera move. And because I was in black lycra, it was a really great secret. If they miss a bit of me, they can't cover all of it, or they miss a couple of frames where you might see my leg, it looks like it's just shadow because it's black. It's not bright blue or green or grey. It's black, and if it's in amongst all the foliage and the light is going all over the place, then you can kind of get away with claiming that it's shadow. I'm not as gigantic as a black bear, so that didn't happen a lot. They were able to cover a lot of what I was doing with the bear. But I did a lot of observation of bears in their habitat. We have a zoo in Wellington that has a beautiful sun bear called Sasa. She's wonderful. She is so, so cool.
Are you just referencing a Swahili word, or is she actually called Sasa?
She's called Sasa.
'Cause
That's
now.
her name. Yeah. Yeah, her name is Sasa.
Wow.
Yeah, Sasa the sun bear. She's beautiful. So I would go and watch. They do like bear talks every 3:30 p.m. And you go and they talk about Sasa and they feed her. And I watched the way that she would sit and move and listen and look at things because she knew her name. She obviously understood the regime. She was like, I come out at this time of day.
Snack time.
Yeah, there's food, and I recognize the handlers. And then I would sneak back at other times when she wasn't there, and I would call out to her, and she would pop her head out and realize I wasn't the warden and be like, "Oh, you're not. No, I don't know you." But I was like, "Yes."
You're using me for your job.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. But yes, I would watch a lot of her movements and reference a lot of what she was doing. I watched a lot of CCTV footage and nature documentaries where people not only talk about what they're seeing, like, oh, a bear is tearing apart my car, but also some people would talk about why do bears do what they do? Why are they moving because they're hungry? Are they moving because they've been displaced? So a lot of that built into a movement library for me. And because I'm definitely not a black bear, I have to try and get my body as close to that as I can to help illustrate that character.
You see what's crazy though about art and artists, yeah? If any non-creative is listening to this, they'll just be like, this is why we have the perception that we do as just weird weirdos, you know?
Yeah.
This guy is 100% committed to being a black bear, right? This is why our parents are all just like, what did we do wrong with these kids? And that is what is so important about the visual effect, is we're trying to demystify and deconstruct art and creativity. So you're not the weird freak, but we're also trying to capitalize on it and actually make bank. Apart from the paycheck, right? How do you, because, you know, our listeners are starting out and they're going to be making these films for not Elizabeth Banks, for not a paycheck.
Not yet.
So not yet, exactly. Episode 5.
Bado.
How do you, in your mind, or where did you go at the beginning of your career to be like, wow, I am such an idiot weirdo. I'm becoming a bear. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, how did you silence the doubting voice? Or did you just not have one? Or were you that lucky?
When I was younger, I had a lot of, I think the doubting voice is always there. I think it's a part of your own self that's trying to keep you safe. And I think when I was younger, I would kind of drown out that voice with like false bravado and a bit of like muy macho and just blind confidence of a, you know, cis heteronormative man in this world, where everything was going to work out because I was a man and I was attractive and I was fit and strong and I was doing all this cool creative things. And then as I got into the actual reality of working in this way and trying to build a living in an art form that is a struggle in today's system, yeah, that voice suddenly wasn't being drowned out as much. And so I had to start relying on training and really remembering that little spark inside 8-year-old Allan when he watched these movies and when he saw those TV shows and when he watched that cartoon, the spark inside that child that was like, that's what I want to do with my life. And in the moments where the doubting voice gets very, very strong, because it's just me trying to keep myself safe in this world, like get a more reliable job, get some money, you know, you have a family to feed, you've got to stay, you know, you need a warm home, you need food. That voice is just trying to keep me safe. And so I had to remind that voice that the little spark inside 8-year-old Allan was almost like the guiding star. That's what you keep looking for. And that helps keep you moving in the right direction. And this voice inside you that's trying to keep you safe then has an easier job of guiding you to make better choices. And I mean, this is, in my opinion, it comes down to the support network you as an artist build around yourself. Some people are phenomenal entrepreneurs and they can do it all themselves and they're incredible people. I am not one of those people, so I needed a support network of fellow creatives and intelligent, strong, driven, successful people who understood the journey I was on. And it may not have been their journey, but they were gracious enough to support the decision that I was making. And I come from a very industrial family. They were very much, we didn't have a lot of money, so they were like, if you don't need to be at school, get a job, because then you can make money and you can support the family, which is a big deal. And when I said, no, I want to continue my study, it was hard for them to deal with, because ultimately they were about help the family, support the family. And I felt like I was looking to the future and saying, in the future, I will be better equipped to support the family. And it took them a while, but then eventually, after like a few years of being in the industry and being able to turn up and be like, here is my support. You know, I have the time and the resources to be able to support anyone with whatever they need, if it's my younger siblings or relatives or even older members of my family. Then eventually they realized that it was a sound investment that I was making, and they came around, and now we're a very strong, supportive family.
Please tell me the story of why you ran away to the circus.
Did you actually do that? Or
I
is this
did.
just a...
No, I did.
We've all run away to the circus.
Well, yeah,
eventually.
we've all run away to the circus. But I literally ran away to the circus for a summer. There was a traveling circus group when I was younger called the Weber Brothers Circus, and they would go to an area and set up, and they would often ask locals to help them out.
Yeah.
And so I was hanging around one day because the circus was in town. I must have been about 15, 16 years old. And one
Nothing
of
good
the
happens at 16.
yeah, that's pretty fair. It was a wild adventure. Someone saw me, just one of the workers there, and was just like, "Hey man, do you want to help us out?" And I just thought they meant like help carry things or move things, and I said, "Yeah, sure, of course." And he was like, "Okay, great." And then he gave me like a handful, like a basket that had all this weird, like these weird veggies in it, and he just took me around and introduced me to the animals, and kind of got me to feed the animals. I did have to like carry things and haul things and pull ropes and pick up heavy things, but it also I learned. I encountered these animals that were in an interesting position because as a young person, I was very naive about the reality of animals working in the circus. But I met people who were inside that circus that really tried their best to care for these animals and look after them and show them love. And there was an elephant, this beautiful, beautiful elephant, and they introduced me to her handler, and she introduced me to the elephant. Not as a way of like, this is the elephant, but she took me to the elephant and spoke to the elephant like an old friend and was like, "Hi, look, this is Allan." And it was amazing because the elephant looked at me and actually looked at me and saw me, and it was terrifying that this humongous creature that was just raw power just looked at me as she knew that she was bigger than me, but she also understood that I was part of the crew, especially because her handler, who she knew, and she liked the handler. So when I was introduced, she was fine, and I got to feed her and kind of check her out, and I met some cool acrobats and clowns, and they taught me a lot of interesting things with like acrobatics and gymnastics and balancing and trampoline tricks, and it was a really cool time. And I met the world's angriest baboon, and I realize now why you probably shouldn't ever work with baboons, because they don't want a bar of it.
This is so weird. So 15, 16, you're encountering movement and animals, and flash forward a couple of years, and you're working in that field. Now, speaking of animals, were you Kong? You are Kong?
Yes.
No.
King Kong.
Tell us about that. And is that a pickup line you use often?
That's like, I think if it'd be a very niche audience that line would work with.
And here we are, the visual effect. You're welcome. Okay, so tell us about that audition process, because I want to know all about that.
So again, that was a kind of word of mouth recommendation that came through Weta FX. They had been working on Godzilla versus Kong, and they had a section where Kong was in the facility and he wakes up and he scratches his butt and he has a shower and interacts with Gia, and they were doing some keyframe animation, and the animation supervisor at the time, Dave Clayton, he and I have worked together a lot. So he understands my ability, and we have a shared vocabulary, so we can communicate really quickly. And we looked at previous reference footage from all of the other Kong films. We read notes from the director and from the client in terms of what they thought Kong was. And I worked with Dave to build just a walk cycle, actually, for Kong, to try and get his weight and his power as he charges through this forest, being as tall as he is. And from there, Dave was like, cool, well, let's work on these other scenes. And that grew into being called back again for Kong. And I, just over repetition, I kind of got a lot of Kong's movements into my body so that it would be less about thinking of trying to put my arms in the right place and get more into the emotional state of what Kong is and work from there from an acting perspective. Okay. And then that turned into, hey, we're working on Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. You've already been Kong before. Do you want to keep doing that? And I said, yes, that's fine. And then they were like, well, also there's this other Titan called the Scar King who has a different way of moving altogether, but he's still he's a Titan ape. Do you want to do that as well? And I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. That's
so you're the go-to guy. Now, listen, we do promise that it's about pixels into pesa. Pesa is Swahili for money. So first of all, in the R&D stage, are you charging by the hour? Is that a really crass question?
No, that's not a crass question at all. For Cocaine Bear, I was essentially given a research stipend. So they essentially paid me for 2 weeks of research time. And I had 2 weeks to do as much research as I wanted, and they would pay me a weekly wage.
Okay, next question. you see, the thing is, right? I know because I studied abroad and I went to drama school. I was lucky enough to go to drama school, even though my parents didn't want that to happen. There's such things that the key elements that we're missing in Kenya, right? Agents, casting sites, casting boards, actual auditions, even paying jobs. So you referenced two opportunities that was word of mouth. Nairobians, we all know each other as the creative industry, and I'm sensing that New Zealand creative industry is kind of the same. Do you have an agent, and how much of that work is through your agent and
Because I do have an acting agent, and she handles the negotiations for all of my contracts. In terms of performance capture, though, I got my first job through word of mouth. I just happened to be sitting in a car with Ben Francham, a mutual colleague of ours, who was already working on Tintin. And that started the first job, and from that, the job continued. And I approached my agent about it, and I said, I've had a few of these gigs with these contracts. Would you want to be a part of that negotiation process? And she was awesome. She just said, no, if you found the work yourself, then if you can handle the administration of that, that's totally fine. But she also said, if you want me to be involved in terms of looking over contracts and making sure they're all fine, I will gladly do that. And she and I have a working understanding of what she is responsible for and what I'm responsible for. And with the recent convention requests and appearances that I've had, people have come to me directly. They've emailed me or they've found me on social media and asked if I wanted to be a guest at these conventions, and I've funneled those requests to my agent, and she handles that.
Because that's the paperwork and the legal jargon. I think really Aqua Arts needs to be doing this as you grow. You're gonna have to be that buffer, because unfortunately we all know too many stories of not being paid, getting caught out on usage rights. So add that to the Aqua Arts to-do list.
So
you've got nothing else going on.
Let's remember that this amazing talk here actually will happen in the future. So I'm going to say something, and it's okay to say. When we opened our festival, we took time to try and open it different, with a bit of production from Aqua Arts. And there are talented people all across Kenya. Allan has had the experience of acrobatics, gymnastics, kung fu, Muay Thai. He's got a deep resume. Within Kenya, there are so many talented people, writers, directors, producers, actors, screenwriters. You fit almost everything I just said. We have talent beyond talent here. The trick is getting all these acrobats and gymnasts and natural folks the skills that you developed over time, because you took time to know who you are, to learn yourself, to learn the creatures you wanted to mimic. That is something that has to be structured. Aqua Arts can be part of it, but in order to do that, we would actually need to have Allan and some other high-level professionals come here to help build that infrastructure. Just like we're trying to build infrastructure for visual effects, motion capture is a large part of visual effects. And it annoys me when people tell me motion capture isn't visual effects. Yes, it is. And it's not just moving around. It's emotion, it's acting, it's finding the character. Sorry, I know I'm repeating everything you just said, but that's what I know we can do here. And I like the fact that you pitched to Aqua Arts for being the entity to do this, but we also know this, and I'm looking down the barrel. We need to talk to some folks who have the funding to create these things. We're not begging, we're not like hand in hat or hat in hand looking for money like that. We are asking to build the creative entity that will give access to a lot more talented people in Kenya that expands our global international network, hopefully all the way to New Zealand.
So let me ask you this, right? We're talking about, we're kind of suggesting people with the money in Kenya are governments, commissions, embassies. Allan, I'm going to throw this to you. As a New Zealander, what you've worked across and with many studios. We don't have that here. So give us the bare bones in your mind. What is the skeleton organization that we would need to at least even start making this sort of no pressure.
Yeah.
Fix our lives.
Okay. So you already have an incredible resource, and so there needs to be some sort of entity that exists as representatives of that resource and liaises with investors and funding bodies to not only funnel that money where it needs to go, but also to establish, as you say, an infrastructure. So agents are a resource that exist between performer and contractor or employer, and they are capable of negotiating contracts and making sure that a fair deal is reached. And when productions and studios arrive in New Zealand to create work, they have a list of requirements from performers which get sent to casting directors, and their role is to serve as a liaison between what the studio needs and what the agents can provide. So rather than studios bombarding agents who are already trying to manage their clients, the casting agent takes the request from the studio and then feeds those requests out to the agents and says, who do you have that can tick these boxes? Send them my way. We'll put them down on tape. And then that smaller, more manageable resource gets sent to the client, to the studio, who then decide who they want and what they want. I'm not sure what the situation in Kenya is in terms of fabrication and physical creation of film sets and equipment and resources.
There are.
Yeah, we have great casting directors. We have great talent. We have brilliant production houses. I think the problem for me with this world, right, is when you add in all of the technology and the equipment that you'll now need. We have to have like special suits for what you do, right? So you can't, don't think you can be part of our team yet.
Well, you say that.
Yeah.
You say that. But the technology is growing so much that it's actually becoming more and more accessible. So yes, if you want to operate in the same way that WetaFX operates, you will need the hardware and the software and the equipment and the suits to match. Yes, but you could have said the same thing about filmmaking on a set, and you need specific cameras and specific whatever. But people are making films on iPhones. People are using their mobile devices to capture motion and generate 3D avatars and then manipulate them and create storyboards. So the technology exists, and more investment in emerging technologies and really investing in trying to improve the technologies is only going to improve the product for sure. But yeah, I mean, for me in New Zealand, we have WetaFX. So we have WetaFX, which handles visual effects. We also have studios that have been built by Peter Jackson, and we have another fantastic studio that's just been built called Lane Street, which is comparable to Stone Street, which was, apologies. Stone Street is Peter Jackson's studio. Lane Street is comparable to it. So we have physical locations that allow the production of film being built. And I think having those two, having the physical location, a film set, a studio, and a visual effects house, those two are the building blocks for a sustainable industry.
Something that we've covered a lot on previous episodes, again, hit YouTube, Aqua Arts, all of the episodes are there. You need to catch up. So I'm going to get the name wrong. Is computer technology going to take away your jobs?
Okay.
Are you talking about
So
AI?
Yes.
So let me jump in.
Oh my gosh.
Allan
scary.
and I had a conversation about this morning, and it was funny as he explained the skill sets that he does in comparison to the animators that he works with. And then I said, in my Kentucky ultimate understanding of education,
Nice.
I said, you are the physical embodiment of what AI is for the animators, because you make everything as efficient as you can, which allows the human to put the final polish on. So the motion capture that he does technically is AI for the animator, but it's not taking away from what the animator does. It allows the animator to still have a job and do it better. Makes it faster, what producers like, more efficient, and yeah, maybe it doesn't cost as much here or there, but those jobs will always exist because the two, motion capture and animators, will work in tandem to achieve the final product.
And when you've got performance capture artists and animators who work well together, and the work happens so fast and the result is so good. I'm fortunate that my working relationship with Weta has gone on for so long that almost the entire animation department and myself share a vocabulary. So we can all communicate with each other very easily. And yeah, I think AI is an incredibly powerful tool in the sense that if it's being used as a way to generate ideas and build a foundation, I think that's a really powerful tool to have, because then once all of that has been generated very quickly and over a large scale, a human gets the joy of refining that and putting the creativity on the thing. So you don't have to burn as many life hours just trying to generate different versions of the same content. And yes, I feel the main issue with AI at the moment is the fact that it's built on an unethical premise. So its foundation is unethical at the moment. And it's weird. There was a great quote online a couple of days ago where someone said, they were like, I want AI to exist. I want AI to pay my taxes and do my dishes so that I can do art and make music. I don't want the AI to do art and make music so I have time to pay my taxes and do the dishes. So I think, will AI take over my job? At the moment, no, because it doesn't have the human element. It doesn't have that humanity embedded in it that an audience connects with.
I saw a better one. I have to stop you. AI doesn't have childhood trauma. And I was like, done. Creatives, we will continue. We will continue.
Yeah. We have gone through a lot, so we need to get to some of the nuts and bolts. So, Allan, I'm going to ask you real quick. First, within motion capture, there are different types of software that need to be used. What is it that we can tell our audience to look for or look to?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I have a very limited knowledge.
That's okay, go for it.
So some of the software that we have used over the years are things like Giant, Avid, Motion Builder, Gazebo, Unreal Engine. Unreal is incredible with what it's able to do. We've also used Move AI. We've used. There are also some proprietary softwares from Unity and Unreal that are just available.
Within the chain of individuals and departments like MoEdit and other folks, how is it that they work in tandem with you to achieve the final goal?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So the pipeline of work at WetaFX is a series of conversations between departments, which is fantastic. So everyone gets the same brief about the character. Different departments have different objectives they've got to hit. And my work will then, all of the capture will go to Motion Edit, who are absolute mad scientists. They'll remap all of my human movements bound in reality and in the space. They'll map it to a creature that is imaginative and doesn't exist and has long arms and is 400 feet tall and a tail. And they will make it make sense. And then that gets given to the animators, who have a much easier time of animating it and making it look smooth and real and giving it even more of that weight and adjusting timing, and then that information gets fed to lighting, it gets fed to comp, it gets fed to shaders, it gets fed to all these other departments. So work is shared and improved upon until it finally gets delivered to the client. And my role within motion capture and performance capture is an important piece of that puzzle, but it is still a piece of the puzzle. And knowing that you're a piece of a puzzle, I think helps remind you that it's about the work. It's not about your ego. It's not about you. It's about how can you help this work improve? How can you help this work move forward?
Excellent answer. Thank you. Thank you very
welcome.
much. Thanks for watching this episode of The Visual Effect with Allan Henry, motion capture artist, performer. On our next episode, episode 6, we have a matte painter, a concept artist, and environment artist, Yvonne Muende, also the CEO of Aqua Arts. See you soon. Remember to subscribe to our social media handles to stay up to date with everything Massage and Aqua Arts.
Like when you're out in the national park and you observe elephants, they don't look like they're having a tough time hauling all of that mass, across the plains. It's so easy for them because they're incredibly strong. And with Kong, it's the same. He's huge, but that weight, it's not a burden to him. Yeah, so he's very easy and he's very relaxed with it. And there's all this power when it comes time to move, because we have to now depict his size and his mass. If we just pretend to be heavy, that can get in the way because of our human understanding of what heavy means. So one trick I like to use that I learned from my teacher, Terry Notary, is this idea of imagine moving through air, but it's thicker. Like you're moving through thick space, almost like you're moving through like a soup or like a sludge. So instead of moving your arm as you normally would through the space, if you imagine that it's moving through something that's a bit more difficult to move through, it can be easier for your body to find a rhythm that shows off more of that mass. Because if we try to think of it now from an artistic perspective, humans, from the human viewpoint, Kong is humongous. So the way that he moves will appear slower to us because of the scale. So in order for us as humans to replicate that, we start thinking about this idea of moving through thick space. So that as he steps, the weight still moves and there's still that movement and freedom in him, but it's all very, very contained and very measured because we're trying to show his mass. Does that make sense? Yeah. So try and imagine moving around and taking a step and turning around, and it's all thick space. Yeah, nice. And then come back. Yeah, and turn and come back this way. Yeah, and you see even that turn is informed by the space that you're moving through. Nice. So already from an outside perspective, I can see the difference in the way that you're moving through the space, which gives me a stronger starting point to then start thinking about how can we tweak this? What do we need to change? Does something need to shift? Do we need more speed here, less speed here? Rather than saying be heavy, which is so vague, we can start getting specific with our performers and giving them the tools to help portray that character a bit more.